does me no good for you to get us good ranking if we either have a bad reputation or no reputation in terms of what people say about us online out there.
Hey, podcast listener, you're about to discover insider tips, tricks, and secrets to making more sales and converting more prospects into customers with email marketing. For more information about the Email Marketing Podcast or the Autoresponder Guy, go to dropdeadcopy.com/podcast.
It's John McIntyre here, the Autoresponder Guy. I'm here with John Keel. Now, John came to me through actually a cold email I sent to someone named Anne. And I was contacting people about Infusionsoft. Turns out Anne's a campaign maniac. Apparently, she knows how to do all these crazy things with Infusionsoft. So I asked Anne to come on the podcast. Anne then refers me to John, who's built this amazing company that works with small businesses to manage their reputation and do their local listings and do some really, I think he's really on the forefront of what's going on in this industry, especially with the small businesses. We were just chatting about some of the stuff we talk about now, but to do with, if you go online and you search for a business and you can't find anything about them, that's even worse or just as bad as finding bad reviews. So I thought get John on, have a chat about what he's seeing in the industry, what's working, what's not working, and see where it can go. So this is really for people who have a small business, but I think there's going to be some interesting lessons for people who are running an e-commerce store or more of a traditional internet marketing operation. It's going to, I think, apply across the board. We'll see. John, how are you?
Fantastic, John. Good to talk with you today.
Yeah, it's good to have you on the show, man. Thanks for coming. So, before we get into, I guess, the nitty-gritty of what you do and what's working and what's not, can you give the listener a little bit more of a background on who you are and what you do?
Oh, sure, John. I appreciate it. Yeah, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, this is actually a second career for me. I actually began to work for and ended up owning and running a traditional business. When I sold it in 95, we had 65 employees, 6 offices, and did about somewhere between $14 and $15 million a year in annual revenue. And quite frankly, I had to sell the business just to save my family from me. Really got out of control. And so I'm sitting there in Cincinnati in 95, and a friend of mine, or actually it was a buddy of mine, was the dean of the local graduate school, business college, Xavier University in Cincinnati, and I'd gone through the MBA program there before. And so he asked me to come in and teach. And so I started just teaching as an adjunct professor, and a couple students one night, and it was January of 2007, came down after class, and these were, real people with real jobs, and they said, "What do you know about the internet?" And to give you a frame of reference, in January of 97, there were 72,000 websites in the world.
Wow. That's not many, is it?
Not many, and high speed was 1,800 baud, whatever a baud is. I don't know, it's slow. But we didn't know any better. So went online for about 7 or 8 weeks and just said, holy cow, this is a tremendous, or could be a tremendous tool for real business in terms of lead generation and so on. And I will admit, I didn't know a whole lot about marketing back then. So whatever I thought a lead was back then, and got involved. And I said, this could be a new thing for me. And so learned from some very smart people. And in fact, one of the lessons that I learned, as you were alluding to, is I found 4, 5, 6 people that it seemed like they would knew what they were talking about. I bought their stuff, and back then it wasn't digital delivery, John.
Who was selling the stuff back then?
Names like Marlon Sanders and Declan Dunn and Jonathan Mizell, all some of my original mentors. Information products, but it got delivered to you in a notebook with VHS tapes and cassettes, and so that's how I learned. And then I approached each of them, and this is the lesson. I said, I need to go to the source of the information, and they became mentors. And so I actually paid my own money and went to them. And over about 4 or 5 months, they taught me everything basically that they knew, and came back and said, I'm going to kill. And I'd been very active in the local small business community. I just wanted to have a little business here in Cincinnati and work with business owners I already knew. And after about 6 months, had zero success. And my daughter not my daughter at the time, but at that time, my oldest daughter said, well, you're going about it all wrong. And she said, you're trying to convince people who don't know they have a problem that they do. And I said, wow. And she says, what you got to do is just help them go find people that have a problem and help them improve their results, which is where the name of my business, Improved Results, came from. So little change in focus, and things started taking off. And then since I was already involved at Xavier, things always get connected. I ended up developing or co-developing the online marketing program for MBA students there, and so ended up teaching that 4 or 5 years. And out of that came more people. I found out about pay-per-click in '98. This is way pre-Google, and got sort of a reputation around that. We developed some software to manage bids and wrote a book, and things just sort of started taking off. And
right.
In fact, as I mentioned, Perry Marshall, who's a very good friend of mine, came to the first seminar we did on pay-per-click search engines, and of course he took it from there with Mr. Google AdWords. And I wasn't really interested in becoming a pay-per-click expert. I didn't want to get myself typecast there, and just did general consulting. And out of my teaching, a lot of my students worked for agencies, so the agencies didn't know anything about the internet. So I came in and I was sort of their hired gun. Worked with a lot of Fortune 100, 500 companies through them. And so as I mentioned, I got to the point where I said, I'm never going to work for a publicly held company again.
Why is that? I'm curious.
Oh, well, number one, back then it was it's all about, as Dan Kennedy says, big dumb companies who have stupid money, and they just spend the money. And they, at that point in time, they really weren't interested in results. Tracking was not that important.
Yeah. With
my engineering background and what I've learned from marketing, I'm a big believer in tracking everything.
Yeah.
And things don't move fast.
Yeah.
I mean, just really, really slow. So you kind of exited out of all that and got back into working with small and medium-sized businesses. And then in late 2007, a friend of mine at Google told me, he says, you really need to look at local, the next frontier. I did. And I said, my goodness, this is, talk about, I personally believe that small and local businesses, and a small local business is anything maybe under $10 million a year or something like that, maybe 20. And they are the only people, if you look at net job creation in this country, it's that. It's certainly not the big companies. And I think they're the savior to our economy. And I had been one, and I was one. So I started working in that arena with ranking, and we got pretty good at Google local ranking and all the things that are involved with that. And then that was 2008. Began working with a couple franchises. So all of a sudden, our business is really growing. We're working with multiple locations around the country. And June 1st, 2012, Google made some massive changes, which affected, as we say, 80 million businesses worldwide in one day. And it all had to do with, technically, and I'm not much of a technical person, but how these things that people call reviews are shown, and whether they're indexed or not indexed. Up to that point in time, it wasn't a big deal. It's a big deal today. And so we kind of flip-flopped our business because we'd not really focused on reviews primarily prior to 2012. But as a number of my clients have said to us, I said, does me no good for you to get us good ranking if we either have a bad reputation or no reputation in terms of what people say about us online out there.
Yeah.
In fact, that means they just find it quicker. So today our focus is on primarily working with, initially anyway, with businesses to get that problem handled, right. and then move into things like ranking and all kinds of traffic generation and conversion things.
Right. What's interesting there is that, like, when people come into this, usually they go for, well, I'm going to increase traffic and I'm going to increase conversions. But I like what's going on here is it's a little bit different in the sense that you don't, put that to the side for a second. And step number one is to manage the reputation and make sure that they look good.
And really, I believe that is a conversion issue in a sense, because if I have a bad reputation is we think anything under a 4-star reputation online. Or I have 0 star, I have no reviews online, which again is just in today's environment is just terrible, quite frankly. And people, here's why that's important. Think about this: most businesses are built from what we call private referrals, word of mouth. And we did we're involved in a study about a year ago with some folks, some friends of ours, and the question asked was this: when somebody recommends a business to you, what's the first thing you do? In fact, John, I would ask you, if somebody tells you about a local restaurant, what's probably the first thing you're going to do?
Check it out online.
Yeah, I'm going to Google them. In fact, we found that over 90% of the people said that's what they do.
Wow.
And So if 90% of the people from what we call a word of mouth or private referral are going online, they're checking, over half of them are looking for reviews. Others are maybe looking for their website or going on social media to check them out. So we say, gosh, if 90% of people are doing that, let's focus on those people and give them what they want. The thing is, and you know this, with today reviews, it's just not reviews in Google or Yelp. It's just they're all over the place. You cannot hide. So if you're a business owner, and again, whether you're a local business owner or you're a national brand, there's stuff out there about you. Just look at Amazon. Look at all the reviews on Amazon, and people pay attention to this. And the interesting thing to me is, John, they don't even have to be true. In fact, we have a number of situations we know where people have written fake reviews. A competitor will hire somebody to write bad reviews about a competitor.
Yeah,
it just. As I said to somebody recently, I said, I'm sorry I didn't make the rules, but this is the way it is today. So you have to decide whether or not you're going to play.
Okay. So then if someone's willing to accept that, well, that's how the game's played today, I've got to get reviews somehow, but they don't have any, or they're trying to get this issue handled. What's your recommendation to someone who's trying to fix this?
Well, we did another study just recently. We're involved in another study just recently, and then one of the questions was, so why don't you leave a review? And about 500 people were surveyed. And they said, Bill, the major reason was because nobody asked me. So most businesses do not have a system. They might have a system in place for generating referrals, maybe, and hopefully they do, but they probably don't have a system in place for generating reviews. And in many cases, it's just asking a customer, client, or patient.
Yeah.
And we don't. By the way, we don't use the term review. We use the term and encourage our clients from a scripting standpoint, to say, "Hey, would you mind giving us some feedback?"
Okay.
Big difference, and everyone will say sure. And then I have to, either give them instructions on how to go to Google or Yelp, or have tools. Maybe I have a website they can go leave a review on that gets posted out to Google and these other sites. So it's having systems in place, developing systems, and systems, by the way, as we have found the hard way, that don't take a lot of our employees' time or energy because they've already got jobs they're doing. They don't need one more thing. So it's just thinking creatively of ways to do that. We've even got developed some stuff that we give our clients that says, if somebody says, well, I don't really have time, and they say, well, do you have an Android phone or an iPhone? And they say, sure. I said, well, here's some instructions. If you just take 30 seconds, here's some instructions. Take these with you. And it's step by step, 6 easy steps to post a review on Google or Yelp using an iPhone or an Android. Yeah. And it's just...
One way I've thought of with situations like this is, you could obviously get like an iPad or something like that, set that up in the office. It's not going to work for some businesses, but I think generally speaking, this would work. You set it up on a stand or something at the exit or wherever people go after they've completed their purchase or the experience, and then just have a review application open and just say, hey, before you go, can you just fill out, can you fill out this feedback form? And,
exactly. Yeah. That's one of the things we provide is sometimes we'll even provide the iPad with our clients, but it's open to that page. And again, before you go, would you mind giving us some feedback and pointing to it? Yeah. And some will, some won't. That's okay. And then, by the way, those that don't, I've got a patient list or a customer or client list. Hopefully, I've got better have their name and email address to be able to market to them in other ways. And I have an email follow-up. Says, hey, thanks very much. Appreciate your coming in the other day. Would you mind taking a minute and going here? So I give them a link to maybe my Google page or my Yelp account and let them do it that way. Yeah. It's and it's a never-ending. Here's the thing. I participate with. I call these guys the heavy hitters. There's probably about 10 or 15 people who are really, really top drawer in this. They don't really consult at all. They just I don't want to say they pontificate because they really know what's going on. So I participate in a webinar with these guys regularly. Okay. And they have said since last November, December that 2015 and moving forward, reviews are going to be becoming more and more and more important. It's part of social proof and social engagement.
Interesting. It's crazy how, like, when I look at this stuff, sometimes we get so caught up thinking it's, we need to read, a whole bunch of different books and master all sorts of techniques to grow the business or to improve the ranking or to get more customers. And I think here, this is so simple. It's just get more reviews.
It really is, John. And one of the things we've observed over the last several years is that, and again, I'll just go back to what we call a private referral, word of mouth. Somebody tells a friend about your business. Friend goes online to check you out. If you have glowing 5-star reviews, that's one more piece of social proof about your business. And then from an authority and credibility standpoint, it's huge. But if you have no reviews or just a couple or negative reviews showing, chances are, and I mean, for me personally, I won't call you. And we developed a term we call the uncall. You can't measure it because it never occurs, but there's a lot of business that we believe are losing just because people have seen either bad stuff about them or no stuff about them online and just say, hey, I'm going to somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's sort of interesting if you think about like a positive feedback loop in the sense of if you're doing referral strategies and you're getting people to refer you, that's great. But if the review system's broken or if you don't have if you've got bad reviews or if you don't have any reviews, that feedback loop's going to be broken and the referral process isn't going to work. But if you get the reviews fixed up, what's going to happen is people are going to refer you. Those people are going to go look you up on Google. They're going to see you've got good reviews. They're going to go to the business, and then they're going to refer you again, and it creates that positive feedback loop where the business starts to grow and grow and grow and grow.
That's a good point. I'd never thought of it just that way, but the loop can be broken. And I was on a call last week, and actually somebody asked the question, well, how do I know if I have bad reviews? I said, it's simple. But sometimes we get, he said, well, I'll search for dentist in Cincinnati. I said, no, that's not how people look for you. If somebody's referred to you to them, they type in your business name and your city, and then they will type in reviews after it or not. And you'll see it's an easy check.
Yeah. Interesting. So do you ever get clients where like you have a business owner and you've told them to go check out the reviews and they're like, oh, it's probably going to be fine. Then they go have a look and they realize that they've got a whole bunch of bad reviews or maybe even have no reviews?
It happens more than you would think. And shock is a response. I can remember almost like it was yesterday, about a year ago, and because we prepare what we call a customer review report for people, some little software stuff we've developed. So it shows you everything. And I sent one to this dentist, and he looked at it, and it includes all the negative reviews, by the way. And he had 4 or 5 negative reviews, and he called me almost in tears because number one, he had no idea. But secondly, 2 of the reviews weren't even patients. And he says, well, these are not true. I said, well, you know it, but nobody else does. And so, there's a way to get around all that. And so we were able to help him do that. But it's just the most important thing I think anybody can do. And as I told this group last week, I said, quite frankly, I don't even care if we ever work with you or not, but go check yourself out. And if everything's great, that's super, great work. But if you're asking the question, you probably don't know, and just see what they're saying about you.
Yeah, interesting. I'm actually sitting here Googling stuff to see if I can find myself while we're chatting here. I can't seem to find too much. So maybe that's a bad thing. Actually, there's a lot of podcasts out there that I've done, but there's not many reviews.
Yeah, and by the way, in your business, because you're more of an online marketer, you can be very proactive about that. And if somebody, you don't need that many if nobody else out there is competing. You're relative to reviews as opposed to, say, a local business, John. And 10 or 15 reviews in Google, just you'd stand out.
Yeah. It's interesting too, like, cause when I just looked it up then, if I go John McIntyre, autoresponder review, because there's a lot of John McIntyres out there, so it's not a very unique name. But on here, there's a bunch of it's like podcast, Twitter, the website, YouTube, podcast, and then Clarity. So I think the podcast, in some ways, because you could look at, like, you've got reviews as a way to manage the reputation. You've also got, if you can get interviews or if you can get other sites to talk about you or mention you or in some way show up when you're there, and as long as it's positive, some sort of positive social proof, it still builds up that brand awareness of you being a trustworthy business.
I totally agree with you. In fact, I did some research on you before we talked. And I said podcast after podcast after podcast. And from an authority and credibility standpoint, game over.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good to know it worked. That's good to. I need to get those reviews though, but it's not really. I can't really put myself in Yelp yet.
No, and in fact, I wouldn't even recommend that. I just saw an article today that. Well, I won't get into Yelp, but it's important from a Google perspective for sure to have reviews in Google about your business.
Okay, and another thing I was interested in asking you is because you mentioned that Google came to you and said, local is going to be huge. So I was wondering, when it comes to trends and what's going on right now at the internet, is everything's changing very rapidly. So what are you seeing, or what have you heard about? What's really changing right now? What's coming up?
I mean, these are products, services we just added within the last 2 months. We're being very aggressive with our clients on reviews, even to the point, John, where and again with what we do, we provide a bunch of tools and software and stuff for people to get reviews, but that's dependent upon our client actually changing behavior, and asking. And what we were noticing is that they may and they may not. And so we work with somebody 3 to 6 months, and if they have no reviews or very few, even though we've done training and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't make any difference. It still comes back on us. So we have we've developed a CRM system that almost initially with the client, within the first 7 to 10 days, we'll say, we're doing all this other stuff for you as part of our onboarding process. But you need to send us a list of 50 to 100 of your clients' names with email addresses. We'll sign off on an NDA, and we will go get those reviews in your name for you.
Yeah.
So in 30 days, you'll have 10, 15, 20, 30 reviews. And we're not leaving it up to the business owner. It's another DF, done for you thing that we're seeing, just because, when we're running our own businesses, we're all busy, and this is not a high priority for most people. So that's a big trend. Another one, just in terms of I'll just call it traffic. How do we get more visitors to our website? We're convinced that retargeting is huge, and we are actively incorporating that whole issue of retargeting, whether it's incorporating with Google or Facebook ads or whatever, into our processes for our clients. Because at the end of the day, I believe that every business, regardless of what they do, is looking at how do I increase my revenue. How do I increase my revenue, and without getting exorbitant in terms of customer acquisition costs? This, in our opinion, is a way to do that. So we are becoming experts at that now, to be able to offer that with everything else that we do to clients.
Yeah, interesting, because there's I think what's working really well right now in the retargeting space is, I got a friend doing this right now, is you set up, say, you advertise an article of some kind on, it could be on like a restaurant review guide, or best places to eat in Seattle, something like that. Someone hits that page, reads the article, whatever it is, and then leaves. They go away, but you've cookied them. You've put a tracking code on their computer, which sounds kind of sinister, but anyway, you've put a tracking code on there. They go away, and then they start seeing ads all over Seattle. Anytime they're in Seattle, for the restaurant who actually created the article in the first place.
Yep, it's and that's the other piece. Content first, worry about the sale later.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way of. It's taken, with the internet and some of these technologies, it's taken the, sales used to be, it's very direct. Let's send people, so a whole bunch of emails. Let's send them a direct mail pitch. Let's hit them with a billboard or a TV ad. And now it's much more, it's not so much softer, but it requires a little bit more finesse, a bit like, seduction, say, where you can't come blasting out.
Yeah, I have to, and there are a lot of reasons, I believe, for that. But as a society, and it's not just here in the States, but around the world, we trust others less. And if I know that going in, that if I open my mouth, you don't trust me. So when I open my mouth, what I want to do is, how do I provide you value that improves your life? And say, and you didn't even ask me for my name and email address. Nope, didn't. And I might not ask for a couple steps in the sequence, so that at some point where you, number one, you understand from an authority standpoint, I really do know my stuff, or anybody. I know my stuff. I'm an expert, and you can trust me. Then you're more open to at least check me out a little bit more. I think so. The sales process, depending upon what we're selling, is changing, and I think it's changing very fast.
Right. I mean, one way to do this is when you do the retargeting, you have an article on the best restaurants in Seattle, or a foodie's guide to Seattle or something, and then instead of linking to the your restaurant's website, you link them to the Google review places page. So then you're saying, hey, if you're looking for a restaurant in Seattle, here's a good one, and here's the review. So it doesn't even look like the restaurant's doing the ad.
Yeah, this is pretty cool what's going on, and I will say that, I mean, you and I both know what it is, but I just had a talk yesterday with one of our major clients and mentioned retargeting, and he said, "Oh, I've heard of it, but what is it?" So I actually developed a little PowerPoint presentation. It's 5 minutes long, and I just take him right through it. And he says, "Now that makes sense."
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of, I'll just call it ignorance in the marketplace. So that means opportunity.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. I've noticed, some of the clients that I'm working with now is that when I first got started with this 2 or 3 years ago, writing the emails as a bit more or less a freelance copywriter, I was pitching the emails. So I was offering, well, I'll give you 5 emails or 10 emails, and here's a price. And what I've been doing lately, and this is sort of a shift in, I think, the way I'm kind of running the business, is it's not about the emails. It's not about how long it takes to write or how many words are in there or anything like that. It's about the overall solution. So with retargeting, it's not about the retargeting and logging into AdRoll or something like that and setting it up and explaining it that way. It's about saying, well, we can, how you can have an article online. If you got 1,000 people in Seattle to visit this page, what if you could put a tracking code on every single person's computer and then create an ad that follows them everywhere they go? Wouldn't that be cool? And then they go, yeah. I mean, it sounds good.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not forcing you to do anything. I'm there. Marlon Sanders is an old-time copywriter, internet guy. He's been around forever. Great guy, knows his stuff. I remember back in the late 90s, he said this. He told me, he says, "John," and he's from Texas, so he has a Texas drawl. And he says, "John," he says, "making money's easy." He says, "You just go find out where people are and lay down in front of them." And that's really all we're talking about here.
I like that. Very simple. Okay, so I think we're right on time here. So before we go, though, if people want to learn more about you or about the business and maybe get in touch and even become a client, where's the best place for them to do that?
Well, they can go to our website, which is improved, IMPROVED, results, RESULTS.com. Just, check us out, look at the content, look at the testimonials and the reviews.
Yeah.
And, we've got a phone number that people can call. I will tell you this, John, I don't answer my phone. I only do scheduled calls, but leave a message and we can set something up. If you want to talk for 10 or 15 minutes, be glad to do that with somebody. Nice. And if you like, that phone number, if that's okay, is 513-257-8633.
Perfect. So I'll have links to the website. I can even put the phone number on the podcast page on my website as well.
Great.
It's improvedresults.com and 513-257-8633 for improved results. John, thanks for coming on the show, man.
John, it's been great. I really just enjoyed sharing with you, and I just, as you can tell, even though this is a second career, and they call me the old dog with new tricks, we all are on vertical learning curves right now. That's what keeps us all young. It's exciting, and thanks for your time. Really enjoyed talking with you today.
Good to have you.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. If you want to discover more insider tips, tricks, and secrets about driving sales with email marketing, sign up for daily email tips from the autoresponder guy. Go to dropdeadcopy.com/podcast. Sign up, confirm your email address, and I'll send you daily emails on how to improve your email marketing and make more sales via email. You'll find out why open rates don't matter and the 7-letter word that underlies all effective marketing and much more.